going to talk about CW Academy, which I'm very heavily involved in. How many of you gentlemen consider yourselves CW operators?
I'm not.
I know Elliot does. Anybody else? How many of you are interested in developing your Morse code skills? Good. So at least we have a couple. So I'll talk a little bit about the program that CW Academy has. This presentation was originally, let's see here if I can get this to advance. Hang on a second. Yeah, originally this was put together by Joe Fisher, but I'm one of those people that believe that good artists borrow and great artists steal. So I've made some of my own changes to it, but I wanted to give Joe the overwhelming amount of credit. By the way, my email will be available to everyone. If you want to take this presentation and put it on your website, that kind of thing, I will make it available to you in a PDF format if that's something that the club is interested in. If you have questions, let me know. I'm running this on 2 screens, so I can basically visually see everyone. So if you raise your hand or start talking, I should be able to address it right away. So I usually start off my presentations with a little fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who was introduced to the magic of radio at a very young age. And as he got older, he always had this dream that he was always going to have his own little social network when he got older. And when he was 13 or 14 years old, he actually took an amateur radio class and got a novice license. And this completely changed his life. It gave him focus. It gave him direction. It kept him out of, well, I want to say kept him out of trouble when he was a teenager, but he found other mischief to get into with his radio friends. But it led to a college education, selection for college education, led to a career. That career gave him the opportunity to meet his wife and have a family, and everything that little boy holds near and dear has some connection to amateur radio. Well, I'm the person that lived that fairy tale, and when I look at some of the faces here in the audience tonight, I realize that I'm not the only one that lived that fairy tale. And so I get great pleasure in teaching CW Academy, particularly to young people, because I want to give them the opportunity to live that fairy tale too. So that's kind of why I'm here, and that's kind of why I'm involved. So to move on, do people still do CW? And the answer is they sure do, for a whole lot of different reasons. And you can go through all the reasons. There's people who just like the art of CW. But there are people who want to take their amateur radio equipment where it's impractical or difficult to take your computers and all these other devices with you. And so CW allows you to communicate at a very basic level. And so you see it used every day for people doing things like backpacking, QRP, summits on the air, parks on the air, weak signal communications of all different types, and it's still very popular. Here's a recent statistic from 2019, and still a significant number of contacts being made using CW. And I know I get on almost every day and still have no trouble finding people to rag chew with, finding people to contest with, finding DXers, all of those kinds of things. A little bit about CW Academy. So CWops is an organization of people interested in operating Morse code. And CWops came together about 10 years ago as an organization, and the founders came from multiple different Morse code oriented clubs and groups where they wanted to do something a little bit different. And one of the first things they did was have this educational program they put together called CW Academy. There's over 80 advisors, volunteer advisors currently, always looking for more. There's 4 levels of training. think last semester we had something like 800 something students that participated in classes given by those 80 volunteers. We have sessions 3 times a year, and it's 8 weeks per session. And we'll talk a little bit about each of the 4 levels and what's kind of expected with each one. Here's a little bit more since the program started. Well, there have been more than 5,000 students completed the beginner course since 2015, which is, by the way, the year that I started as an advisor. Classes and time vary by instructor. When I start a class, I gather all my students together and say, what time would you like to meet? I'm about to start a class this coming Friday. I've got 6 students in the class. One of them is in India. One of them is in Hawaii. The others are on the Eastern time. And so the one in India and the one in Hawaii just kind of make do. They take the class at odd times, and we figured out a way to make that all come together. I've had as many as 6 students in a class and as few as 1 student in a class. And that we just had one semester where didn't have a lot of students that signed up, and a couple dropped out for various different reasons, and I had 1 student left. She did extremely, extremely well because she got kind of a private tutor for that class. And for some people, this is the thing they like the best, is that these classes are completely free. There is no cost involved, although you will be expected to make, we'll talk more about this. There is an investment you'll have to make. We'll talk more about it. So what's the teaching method? And this is what people really want to know. There's always an advisor that leads the class. They're called advisors and not teachers because the students are expected to really kind of learn the characters themselves. So I am not a teacher, but an advisor. We firmly believe in the Farnsworth method. I'm assuming does everyone know what the Farnsworth method is? Does anybody not know? Raise their hand. Okay. So typically when you send Morse code, the way I learned Morse code, I learned it from my novice license at 5 words per minute. So like you learn the letter L sounded like this. Did. Well, to anyone who knows code at a higher speed, you can almost carry on a conversation between the dits and the das. And what happens is you learn the sound very slowly, and as you're trying to build your speed, it becomes difficult because you get locked into the slow sound. So we teach the speed at a faster speed, so an L will sound like this. But as you send words, you leave a lot of space between the letters. And so Farnsworth is this idea that you leave a long space between the letters, and as you get better at copying, you shorten the time between the letters, okay? So you learn the letters at a higher speed, and you get instant character recognition developed. Go ahead, Elliot.
I don't know if it's just me, but when you were sending those examples, it didn't really come through very well. You might want to do it by voice.
I think it's actively canceling it out. The CW.
You think, yeah.
Well, notch. They must have implemented a notch filter. I don't know,
right, but if you say when you said did it, that came through. So if you could demonstrate that way.
So we learn Morse code really slow. So like an L was did, okay, as opposed to did. And what happens when you learn the code slowly is you get up to 10, 11, 12 words per minute and you kind of hit a wall and you have to kind of relearn the letter over again. At least that's one of the theories. So we teach the letters at a higher speed. It also negates people doing things like counting dits and das. So, V is da. Instead of saying, oh, 3 dits and a da, that's V, you think of V as da. You kind of learn the sound instead of counting the dots and the dash. If you send it really fast, you really don't have time to count the dots and dashes. You just learn the sound. So through trial and error, they found these different learning methods that really work, that help students get to a higher speed much quicker. One of the things we find, particularly when teaching adults, they have a real hard time. They want to run before they can walk. And they have a very hard time starting out really slowly. And this kind of gives you a head start on learning Morse code at a faster speed. So we really emphasize using Farnsworth. Sending is emphasized as much as receiving is. If you can retrieve the character from your brain in order to send it, it means that you're constantly exercising your brain, and your brain is working at retrieving the letter faster and faster, and it will help with the recognition. The letters are taught in the order that they're frequently used in the English language. So, for instance, the first lesson is T, E, A, and N. And since Morse code was designed based on the frequency that letters are used in the English language, it turns out T, E, A, and N are the shortest Morse code letters that there are as well. Okay, so E is dit and T is da. And you can't get any shorter than a single dit or a single da. Okay, so that's T and E, and then A is dida, and N is da dit. So they're very commonly used letters. And that's lesson number 1, by the way, which my students for our Friday class is starting tonight, focusing on learning those letters. And again, our goal is what's called instant character recognition. This doesn't happen for all students right away, which is why we have 4 levels of classes. And that's something that we work on continuously. How do we get you to recognize characters more faster and faster? I don't want to say more instantly, because I don't think that makes logical sense in the English language to be more instant, but to focus really on faster and faster character recognition. Okay, so what do you need to participate in the class? You need a paddle, something to send the Morse code. And I don't know, does everyone have a little window where they can see me, or is it you just sharing the screen? Okay, so
I can see you.
This is a typical paddle right here. Okay, but there are many different paddles, and I've got all kinds of paddles. Double lever paddles, single lever paddles. I've got quite a collection. But you need paddle, and you need either a keyer or a transceiver with an internal keyer, something that has a side tone so that you can hear what the paddle is sending. Need a computer, webcam and microphone, and good internet access. Essentially, you need what we have right here tonight, because we do these classes online, but you also need a keyer and a set of paddles in order to do the practice. All right, so we get asked the question a lot, what if I want to use a straight key? Okay, now I learned on a straight key, and there's nothing wrong with using a straight key once you become proficient in Morse code, but we really feel that it's a trap. By the way, I didn't know, this is one of the slides I added. I didn't know how to really explain this, but if you can see this key, you see that it's a pretty interesting key. So one of the theories with Morse code, we mentioned that sending is as important as receiving. And it's really important to listen to the sound of the character at a speed that's fast enough where you don't count the dits and the das. And so if you're sending with a hand key, you tend to count. So like a B is a da and 3 dits, da, dit, 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 okay? And you tend to count. Whereas with paddles, you focus basically on the sound, okay? So the way paddles work is you have 2 levers. One makes hit, so if you hit the side, and if you hit the side, it's da 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 for as long as you hold it. So you make an A by going dit da 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 and dot it, okay? So so paddles and keyer, again, we feel for faster speed, for learning the sound, that keyers and paddles have an advantage. By the way, this was done through trial and error. When CW Academy originally started, everything was done with hand keys. And a couple of the advisors started experimenting with paddles and keyers, and they found that the students learned the code much faster and they learned it much more accurately. So personally, I have lots of hand keys. I've got a J38, I've got a Russian Army key, I've got lots of hand keys and I love using them, but for learning the code, we recommend paddles and a keyer. The 4 levels are the beginner level. I am a beginner level advisor. I've never tried any of the higher levels, but there are a number of good ones out there. Beginner level is for people really with no prior Morse code experience in mind. So if some of the people here who raise their hands, who are interested in learning more about Morse code, if you've never tried it before, or if you feel that you tried, but you failed, or you didn't learn all the letters, or those kinds of things, this is really the first step. By the way, I've seen students that have come in, they've come into my classes, and I give them a quick evaluation, and I'll say, nope, you're ready to go. You're already ready to go up to the next level. My goal is not to waste your time. I want to place you in the right class. And so I'll do a quick evaluation to see if you're ready to go on, if you have some prior experience. So if your code speed is, say, under 10 words per minute, even if your code speed is at 10 words per minute, if you have a solid grasp of all of the letters and numbers, I would recommend you go to the next level up. But the beginner level is for people really with no experience before. There's a handbook that's provided to the students. By the way, you can go to the CW Academy website and download all of these materials, okay? So these are all open and these are all free. We use an online site that's customized for CW Academy called Morse Code Trainer. And I'll also give you this link later on. You can go there, and if you want to practice code, you can do that as well. This is a 16-session program, 8 weeks. All of the letters are taught by week 10. All of the letters, all of the numbers, all of the punctuation, all the things that are typically used in amateur radio conversation. So after session 10, on-the-air activity is emphasized. And it's really important that students practice the Morse code if they're going to get better at it. So we emphasize on-the-air activity. It's not a requirement. I have had a number of students who wanted to get into amateur radio the old-fashioned way. They wanted to learn the Morse code first and then get their technician license after. So obviously those people couldn't have gotten on the air, but we do emphasize on-the-air activity. What is expected? Attend the online sessions twice a week and practice 45 minutes each day. By the way, I will tell you the secret to learning Morse code, okay? Anybody want to know the secret? The secret is you have to be consistent. You have to practice a little bit every day. I've had many students come to me and say, Bruce, I've been telling people for years, I can never learn the Morse code. I tried and I tried and I tried and I can't learn it. And I went through your class and I learned the Morse code and I don't understand. And I tell them that's because you don't have the discipline to do it every single day a little bit, okay? And the class kind of forces that discipline on you. If you know that there's going to be another class in a couple of days, you tend to focus more on learning the code as opposed to being self-taught and self-studying where you practice it every once in a while, but you keep doing 1 step forward and 2 steps back kind of thing. The end goal is that you learn all the letters, the numbers, punctuation, and pro signs used in contacts. You start getting a feeling for what instant character recognition is. You learn a little bit about CW operating procedure, and you have skills for on-air basic QSOs. When I say CW operating procedures, those last 6 sessions or so are all about how to conduct a rag-chew contact. So how to call CQ, how to answer the CQ, how to give RST, name, RST QTH, which is your location and your name. Okay, just the basics of the contact. We have another week, how to get into a DX pileup. What is DXing all about, and how's the DX exchange go? And we have another week where we talk about contesting. What do you do if you get on the air and you hear a contest? How do you figure out what the exchange is? What can you do in order to participate? All of those kinds of things. So we talk about all of those things. The second level is the basic level. Now, this is actually something that's relatively new. CW Academy used to have 3 levels, and we found that students going from the beginner level to the intermediate level were really struggling. We found it was just too big of a jump. So they started out doing like a little bridge program, and then they decided, no, we need to turn this into another level. So if you know the characters and the numbers, but you're still not really comfortable, okay, then we have this basic level. And again, you already know the characters and the numbers, so there's nothing that keeps you from getting on the air, okay? But this program is to increase head copy, to increase your skills, to do a little bit more contesting, and focus on making contacts and getting on the air, okay? And just developing your skills a little bit more. The third level is the intermediate level. So now you're expected to have speeds maybe between 10 and 15 words per minute. You're doing more focus on this instant character recognition, where you're listening to the letters and you're hearing them quicker. So that's your head. We work on head copying skills. We haven't talked yet about head copying, okay? There is actually multiple different ways that you copy Morse code. Some people either write down the letters or hit them on a keyboard, okay? And this, by the way, is the way it was taught to us 50 years ago. In fact, I still have a bunch of these around. I don't know, Elliot, if you remember this, but this is the old league publication, right? And in here, everything was geared to 5-letter random word groups, like you were copying encrypted military communications. And that's because at the time, the FCC wanted amateur radio. You know, one of the reasons we're here is to provide trained radio operators. Well, you know, commercial shipping and the military and all of these people needed Morse operators. So you were trained to copy perfectly, fingers to keyboard or fingers to pencil, in order to copy it down. And by the way, you still use that for traffic handling, right? Okay. Head copy is where you put down the pencil, okay? You may copy the call sign for the logbook, the name for the logbook, but you carry on a conversation with someone and you read the Morse code in your head, okay? And so there's a kind of, at the intermediate level, more of a focus not only on the instant character recognition, but head copying skills and recognizing whole words as sounds, kind of like the way you read words out of a book, right? When you're, if you remember, you know, when you were learning your ABCs, the first thing they did was they taught you the song, right? And then they would teach you the way each letter sounded. And then when you would read a book, you would sound out each letter, and then you would say, oh, you know, ka-at-ta is the word cat, right? Okay. At some point, you make the jump from sounding out each letter to just reading the whole word. And higher speed Morse is much the same. When you're in a contact, a rag-chew contact, where you're carrying on a conversation with someone, at some point, the words start coming out as opposed to individual letters. Still have to copy the individual letters to get the guy's call sign, because that's random. That's not based on language words or anything like that. But if you're carrying on a conversation, you start recognizing words as sounds, okay? Also, there are some great programs out there for helping you with things like instant character recognition. So there are programs like what's called RuffZ, R-U-F-Z, RuffZ, and Morse Runner. These are great programs to help you. RuffZ is a program, if you use the full implementation, it sends you call signs. You start at a predetermined speed, but if you copy the call sign correctly, it bumps the speed up by 3%, which doesn't sound like much. But you find that after let's put it this way, no matter if you're the fastest Morse code operator in the world, eventually it will get 3% faster than you're capable of copying the code, okay? And I mentioned earlier, I teach students, I teach young people. I don't have trouble getting young people on the air, but I've had young people who were really demoralized by this program because they thought they were doing so good, and they got a program that actually showed them where they fail, kind of thing, okay? And it's not designed for that. It's really designed for helping you develop your skills. Morse Runner is a program that simulates one of the popular DX contests, but it's all done in your computer. So nobody else is listening to you if you're making mistakes or any of those kinds of things. I have to tell you, I used to do a lot of traveling for work, and I'd, you know, catch a red-eye flight back from the West Coast back to Boston. And, you know, I couldn't sleep on the airplane. And so at 2 o'clock in the morning at 35,000 feet, I'd be in the middle of a contest on Morse Runner and be on a frequency like running people, right? But I'd be doing that sitting in row, you know, 28C kind of thing. And just enjoying myself and being able to switch the computer off when I wasn't interested. So these programs are really good. And in fact, I try to introduce my students to these towards the end of our classes. But they do more of a focus at the intermediate level, at really building your speeds up. So the
Bruce,
advanced
I'll vote for Morse Runner. I think it's like a flight simulator for contesting. It's amazing, and it's free.
Yeah, these programs are free. By the way, I didn't mention this earlier. You know, I said that these classes are free, and they are. The one thing I struggle with sometimes is finding keyers and paddles for my students, because it turns out that if you haven't already made the investment in a keyer and paddle, that's something you have to do, right? If you're going to take the class. So it's not exactly free, but the class itself is free. So the advanced level is the last level. And here, you know, it's for people who are head copying 15 plus words per minute. They try to focus on getting students up higher than that, right? And they talk about, you know, on-air operating at speeds of 25 plus words per minute. I don't know if that's so much necessarily rag chewing, but certainly contesting, which is a little bit easier than rag chewing, you should probably be in that range, okay? And again, all of these expect a certain amount of daily practice. I know for my beginners, I say between half an hour and 45 minutes per day. Here at the advanced level, which I've never taught, by the way, they talk about an hour of daily practice. and they do lots of on-the-air sessions and also lots of internet-based sessions. A lot of students who finish the advanced level go on to become members of the actual club, CWops. I've had a number of my students go through the entire program, become members of CWops. Several of my former students are now advisors teaching CW Academy. I can tell you there is nothing that thrills me more than seeing former students of mine going on advising other students. It's like, you know, I'm going forth and multiplying, right? Okay. I'm not only am I spreading, you know, Morse to the world, right? But my students are also continuing to spread it out, kind of thing. The current youngest student, the current youngest member of CWops is Wesley, WA7KVI, who's 12 years old, who's gone through these sessions, and he's one of my former beginner level students. So, you know, remember that program, Are You Smarter Than a 15-year-old? Well, I challenge all of my adult students, you know, to say, you know, are you better than a 12-year-old kind of thing? Because Wesley is actually quite good, but it's just a large number of former graduates who I hear on every week participating in the weekly CWT contests. I see them participating in different contests, I know I operate out at K1TTT, and we have several former CW Academy students operating in the big DX contests out there. So there's a lot of former students that are really well-accomplished Morse code operators now. I mentioned the youth program that I'm involved in. It says designed for youth between 9 and 19 years old. It's really designed for under 20s at any age. I've got a student right now that's 8 years old in my upcoming class. CW Academy at one time had a 2-year waiting list. And when I got involved as an advisor, I went to the directors and I said, look, it's really, really unreasonable to ask a junior in high school or to tell a junior in high school that they're going to have to wait until they're a freshman in college before you allow them to take this course. And everybody looked at each other and they said, excuse me. They said, Bruce, you're right. What are you going to do about it? And so I became the de facto youth advisor. And so what we do is, if you're under 20 years old, we fast track you on the waiting list. You go to the top of the waiting list. Young people tend to like to be with their peers. They fear their how can I put this? They don't mind having an advisor or a teacher, but they feel uncomfortable being in classes with adults. And this gives them a way to not only build relationships with other young people and carry them well past the end of the classes, but it gives them a way to interact with each other. I've had a number of students who are unlicensed when they took the class, and I helped them get a technician license after that and get them on the air. And we're working on some other deals with some other manufacturers besides MFJ as well. But there are several manufacturers that do special deals with the young kids. This, by the way, is one of my classes. This one was from a couple of years ago. I think I've got another one coming up. Elliot, since you were the one that raised your hand as being like the really experienced guy here, okay?
I didn't say, well.
We could, we can always use more advisors.
But I don't know how to copy in my head. I probably need like your second or third level class. I've never been able to copy in my head.
Yeah, but you can rattle along at unbelievable speed.
Bruce, I'll talk to you. Maybe I should talk to you afterwards. I got inspired when I talked to you, and I visited that CWops table at that on-air convention, and I got inspired. I stayed up late either last Wednesday or the one before, and I couldn't keep up with the guys. And if I'll say it. Your website teaches for the CWops, when it announces the times and frequencies, it gives what's common courtesy, which is if somebody comes back to you at a lower speed, lower it down to their speed so you don't scare them away. That's common courtesy, and you guys actually say it. But my experience was the opposite. And I was doing like 26 words a minute, and they're going, I don't know what they're doing. But most of the guys would not slow down. They were worse than in most contests about that.
So we'll talk about that after. Let me wrap this up.
So
okay?
I can't head copy, Bruce, at all. For 50 years.
I'm shocked, Elliot, because I'm shocked. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. So in that case, we're looking for more advisors, and you don't have to be a member of CWops, the organization, to be an advisor. We have a number of advisors who are, for whatever reason, not members of CWops. But I have to tell you that being an advisor is one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in amateur radio. Okay, it's just another way that I can kind of pay this forward, right? I'd like to pay it back, but all of the guys that Elmered me when I was getting into the hobby have long become silent keys, and now the only thing left is to pay it forward for the next generation, right? So, so that's what I'm trying to do. If you want to sign up for CW Academy, by the way, this particular semester, there was no waiting list except for the second level, the basic level. There was a handful that didn't make it into a class. Everyone else got into a class right away. So kind of that old waiting list is kind of gone. But if you go to the CWops.org website, you can find it. It's CW Academy is one of the headings on the title page. Or if you do a Google search for CW Academy, it'll take you right there. And I'll open it up now to questions. Feel free to contact me if you have a question tomorrow, next week. But I've got plenty of time right now. We can keep discussing this now. And in fact, I'll open it. Let's put it this way: I'll open it up for questions. And if you don't have questions, I'll suggest some questions in a while. So. Anybody? Christine.
I have two. Do you advise, if back in the old days when you had to pass an exam, do you advise copying at 3 words a minute faster than the exam so that when you sit down for the exam, it'll seem like, wow, I can copy this easily?
So there is no exam anymore. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know how to answer the question. Okay.
Well, the code proficiency thing at the league.
So look, there's no shame anymore in failing one of those things. What I would recommend is, you jump in and see if you can do it, kind of thing. I'm assuming, Christine, you have no experience with Morse code before, or some?
I passed 20 words a minute back in like 1980, and I haven't touched it since. So I've forgotten most of it. So
I would. The interesting thing is that it's the 21st century, so the league still does daily W1AW code practice. Okay. You can also go to the ARL website and do a search, and they've got all of these different MP3 audio tapes of their code practice stored at the same speed that they run on the air. 5, 7.5, 10, 13, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 words per minute. They've got all of this stuff there, right? And just kind of play with that. Try them out. Also, RUFZ is really a neat program for this, and it's free. The only problem with it is that there's no Farnsworth in RUFZ, okay? And so once you down, I don't want to say below 20 words per minute, but once you get down below maybe 15 words per minute, it starts getting really slow. I have to tell you, one of the things that kind of turned me off to Morse code when I was a kid was at 5 words per minute, it takes you an hour just to send, your name and your city. It takes a long time because it's really slow, right? Okay. Whereas when you get up over 20 words per minute and you start, it just like starts to flow and it really goes really fast, right? And I missed out for the first like 40 years that I was a ham. I didn't rag chew really at all. Everything was either a DX contact or a contest contact where, you're 599, right? That was all of the information that was exchanged. You're 599. Or if it was a DX contest, it was, with a DXer, 59973. I mean, that was it, right? And I got into rag chewing, and it was like, wow, this is really great. I can't imagine. It was like I started having more fun in amateur radio than I had in the previous 40 years when I started rag chewing and actually meeting people and making friends again. So.
Bruce, on that Rough Zed, if I Googled it, is it the Rough Zed XP at the end?
It is.
Their page says it shows a man and a woman who both reach speeds of 195 words per minute.
Does it say words per minute, Elliot, or characters per minute?
No, like this Teodora Kara, I can't pronounce her name, 943 CPM / 195 WPM.
Yes, and by the way, if you watch videos of these people on YouTube, it's so scary you wouldn't believe it. Okay, it's you. And not only that, they're not listening to, it's not words, okay? It's call signs that they're copying. So it's not like they're listening, like, a word is like a pattern that you start recognizing. These are individual characters that they're typing. And by the way, they also have to be able to type that fast, right? Which is also not easy to do.
Good.
So
if that's the case, could you conceivably, instead of starting at 20 words a minute, could you do 40?
I know of someone who makes the claim that their high school teacher, now he's my age, and so he started in high school, that his high school teacher taught them the code at 40 words per minute, the letters at 40 words per minute with Farnsworth, and that he can't copy a conversation that's under 25 words per minute because he can't recognize the characters.
That's not good either.
I don't know, but anyway, Rich, you had a question. You had your hand up.
Yeah, just curious from your experience with your students. Besides the key itself, do you find them using a kind of standalone key or a transceiver? Are they connected to their radios or what?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Whatever's available to them. So, I'm kind of an eBay bottom feeder, right? I find these old MFJ because, I have kids and some of them can't afford keyers and paddles, right? So what's amazing is, you find MFJ keyers and they say, keyer doesn't work kind of thing, right? And you find it's a 40-year-old MFJ keyer with a cold solder joint in it. This thing hasn't worked in 40 years, not since it came from the factory, right? Okay. Yeah. And so I'm a bottom feeder. I'll get these things and fix them, right? But a lot of the students have transceivers already, okay? And so doing the keyer is easy. By the way, I've been experimenting with this set of paddles, which is a 3D printed paddle, and it is phenomenal. Okay.
Really?
I actually don't have a 3D printer, but I had a friend of mine print this up for me, and I ordered the parts from what's the Chinese site? I can't remember
Alibaba?
now. From AliExpress. I ordered the parts from AliExpress, and boy, it's really neat. really neat. So, but that's because, you know, I'm trying to, get my particularly the kids who may not have a lot of money, to get past that hurdle kind of thing, right?
Well,
But
if you don't have
Rich,
a friend with a 3D printer, what's an inexpensive paddle that a beginner could buy or a student could buy?
So the least expensive commercial paddle that I think is usable is something called a Vibroplex, a Vibroplex Code Warrior. The Code Warrior Lite, I think, or does that sound right?
I don't know. I thought Vibroplex used to be the expensive brand, but I guess not anymore.
Well, no, they still are. But a Code Warrior is only about, I think, $120, something like that.
Oh,
okay. But
wow.
you know, if you start going to like a Bencher BY1, which by the way is Vibroplex 2, they're getting now closer to, I want to say $170, $180, that kind of range. So
yeah, no, I just looked it up. Code Warrior Junior is $110. So yeah, you really do have to spend that much, I guess.
yeah, and then take a look, Elliot. What's the price of an MFJ 401E? I think they are now.
So that's 401E.
Or get one at a flea market for $25.
Or get one at a flea market, but that's the problem is that the classes are 3 times a year, and when your advisor calls you and says we're starting class in 2 weeks, then they got to rush out and find something for the class, right?
$95, Bruce.
What's that?
$95.
So between the two of them, you're talking about $200, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this, Elliot, if you can, the problem is when you get on like AliExpress, okay, you got to buy enough parts because it's like the smallest amount on some of the screws is like quantity 25, and you only need like 4 of them for the paddles, right? But if you're building a bunch of these, I don't know, $20 or something. So,
do you have the link for the? Do you have the link for the 3D printing stuff?
I can get that for you. I don't have it handy, but if you do a search on Echo Alpha 7, I think it's. I'm trying to read this and I can't. Echo Alpha 7. Try Hotel Mike Oscar. Let me see if I can.
No. It's a paddle though, right?
It is.
Oh. Okay. Buy paddle accessories from EA7 online? No, that's not it. No.
Hang on a second. It's just my light. The light is terrible. Echo Alpha 7.
Nothing to do with your age, right, Bruce?
Yeah. Thank you, Elliot.
Well, I'm joking because we're very, very close in age, like within a year or so. I still joke about it because I don't want to cry about it. What can I say?
Could I ask a potentially stupid question that probably anybody here could answer while you're looking that up?
Go ahead.
So I've been a tech forever, upgraded to general a couple of years ago, no CW experience, just learning it myself now, but have never got on the air with it. This is going to sound really dumb, but when you're talking about a keyer versus a paddle and that sort of stuff, I'm trying to figure out what equipment does what and what I would need to learn and to transmit. And I realize it's a basic question, but what is the difference between the keyer and the paddle?
Okay, that's a really good question. So you have 2 devices, and one plugs into the other. So this is a keyer, and if you see on it, it's got a couple of knobs, right? And one of them is a speed knob, and the other one is a volume knob. So this is the box that that takes a switch connection and either goes dit or da 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 da, and it makes the physical sound. And this is called this is the keyer. The paddle or paddles is basically a switch. And
I
when
gotcha.
you
Yep.
hit this switch, okay, there's a wire that goes to the keyer where it makes the sound.
Most money I've ever spent on an on-off switch.
Bruce, does that MFJ key you showed, does that have a built-in loudspeaker?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
So
It does, and that's one of the requirements. You know, you can get less expensive keyers that have like buzzers in them, and the problem with the buzzers is that it's not loud enough really for like Zoom or for Skype. You know, so that can be a problem.
Assuming my transmitter, I think my transceiver has a keyer built in, and I'm going to have to dig out the manual and see. But can you use that for practice, or are you always transmitting when that goes?
So most transceivers have a practice mode, okay, where they don't transmit, where you just hear the side tone, and that's it. What do you have for a transceiver?
It's an FT847.
Yeah, almost certainly it'll work. But don't, I would have to go look at the manual. So, before you take my word on it, please check it out.
No, I will. Thank you. I appreciate the very general, very general questions.
I am having trouble here, and I don't know why.
No, Matt, I had the same question. So thanks for asking it.
Thanks, Rich.
I know the Yaesu transceivers that I have, and I've got an old FT757 that's like a vintage 1982, and that had a practice mode in it. So that's why I can say with some confidence that it does have the practice mode.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, we were talking before the presentation started about limited space and attic antennas and that sort of stuff. And I have a very, I guess what I would categorize as a very modest setup because I don't have a lot of space to dedicate to ham radio. But that's one of the shack in a box. It's, all the HF right up through 70 centimeter. So.
Another question.
Bruce,
Do you recommend? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I just got out. So I started out as, a no-code tech, as far as that. But I got on 40 meters with, an MFJ Cub and this cheap Chinese frequency counter because I needed to know where the thing was. It was just this knob for frequency, right? But with the upgraded finals in this, which I believe makes it a whopping 2.5 watts. My first QSO was a 40-meter dipole just strung in a tree. First QSO was West Virginia, and I remember my third one was a lighthouse ship in like Denmark, and I'm like so shaky fisted, like, oh my God, like trying to make this contact. And it was just really a fun experience, and the groups like the CWops and others that kind of make CW accessible to people is what really helped me. For me, I got involved with the SKCC group, which I know, kind of goes against the grain with some of the stuff with the speed stuff you guys are teaching, but it was a friendly group that at least encouraged doing like a proper QSO and that kind of stuff. And that I found helpful too, just learning like, QTH, rig, all those kinds of things and being able to repeatedly do those.
So I had these other these questions and discussions, And so sometimes I get audiences that don't like to engage. And so, like, I'll suggest some questions for them. So, what's the secret to learning Morse code? I think I touched on this during the presentation. Anybody remember?
Practice.
Practice.
Consistency.
Regular practice.
And it's consistency, right? It's not like, you know, I'm going to do it, you know, today and put it down for a week and like pick it right up again. Until it's, you know, I tell people it's like riding a bicycle. And until it becomes second nature, you got to keep trying. Practice a little every day. Don't burn out. Okay. I tell my students 45, 60 minutes a day, break it up 2 or 3 15-minute sessions if you want to do that, but practice a little bit every day. Is there a best way to learn Morse code? I would love to tell you that CW Academy is the best way and the only way to learn Morse code, and I don't believe that for a minute, okay? The best way to learn Morse code is the way that works for you. And, you know, this is anybody who's got a child who suffers from learning disabilities, whether it's dyslexia or a whole range of other things, knows that there is no one size fits all, okay? And there are other programs that are out there. My only advice is the secret to making them work, all of them, is to practice a little bit every day, okay? But there are other groups and other ways. Are there bad ways to learn Morse code? And the answer is there most definitely are, okay? Any method that teaches you to learn Morse code through some quick trick that's a sound association, or I've seen one that they absolutely swear by it, where it looks like a software flow chart, you know, where if it's a dit, you go in this direction, and then it's a die, you go in this direction. I mean, I can't imagine doing that at 1 word per minute, never mind trying to do that at 20 words per minute. If you're a computer program and you're running at some fantastic speed, yeah, that works pretty good, but I wouldn't recommend that. So there are bad ways. Focus on the ways where they send the sound at a relatively high speed. What other programs? And when I say programs, who else is teaching Morse code? Okay. There's a group that's called the Long Island CW Club that's getting a lot of attention right now. They tend to have very large classes. They have no limit to the number of classes. You basically pay your dues to become a member, and then you just show up for a class. And I've heard that the classes will have as many as 30 students in the classes, okay? So you get very little individual attention, and the classes are always running. So if you want to take a class today and not pick up a class again till next week, that's certainly something. They're happy to get your dues, and they're happy to teach you that way, okay? Some people like their programs because they have a lot more on their site besides just Morse code stuff. And also, you know, the CWops classes are 3 times a year, whereas the Long Island CW Club, it's like, you know, there's something canned every day, like forever kind of thing. So the focus is a little bit different, but they do have a large following, and there are people that like what they're doing. There's something called I got to get it right. LCWO, Learn CW Online, okay? And it's an online program, so you can start it and you can work at your own speed. It's just you on their site. They use something called the Koch or the Koch Method, depending on if you pronounce K-O-C-H, Koch or Koch, right? But Koch or Koch. But that method, what they do is they introduce you 1 letter, and then once you're at a proficiency of like 90%, they introduce another letter, and they do it one letter at a time, okay? And once you get to a high proficiency with all the letters that you previously learned, they add another letter into the group, okay? So I hear a lot of people who swear by LCWO, Learn CW Online. So there are other programs that are out there. I mentioned that all the CW Academy stuff is open. Boy, if you have the discipline to do a little bit of practice every day, you can do the CW Academy program just like I had classmates during engineering school who you would only see for an exam, okay? If you want to do it yourself, you can do that if you want to do that. Hector, you raised your hand.
Yes, Bruce, thank you. I just signed up for a class, but the first available class was in January, February 2022. So I guess I have some time.
Yeah, so, and I apologize for that, but sign up for the class. Don't procrastinate, because here's what happens. They kind of calculate the number of advisors that they have, and they calculate 5 or 6 students in a class, right? And then what happens is that you'll be an advisor like me, and I'll get 6 students for a class, and 3 of them come right back. So you tell the 6 that the class is going to start, you're going to have a beginning meeting. 3 of them come back, 2 of them come back and say, something's happened with work, something's happened with family, I can't do it now. The 3rd guy never answers your email. No matter how many times you send him an email, he just isn't reading his emails, right? So then you go back and they assign you 3 more students. And out of those 3, 1 or 2 out of those 3, for whatever reason, they can't take the class. So then they give you another student. So we've seen cases where people are pushed way out, but then they all of a sudden fall right in. But I will tell you, everybody's starting a class right now. So even if you were just, signing up, the earliest class you would get in now is in September, right? So the classes are 3 times a year: September, October, January, February, and this year it's April and May. I think next year they're going to go to May and June for some reason. I don't know, but anyway, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what to say.
No, it's okay. I was just trying to make sure that I was not looking at the incorrect information.
Elliot.
Yeah, well, you said the material is online. Do you think I find anything on there that would teach me about head copy? Because I've never been able to do that. Anything that might help me do it on my own without waiting till next year, or?
I don't know, because there might be things in the courses for the higher levels, which I haven't gone through their curriculum at all, so I don't know.
I might take a look, see.
I know how I learned how to head copy, Elliot, okay? And I did it when I was a novice. And what happened was, my mom worked in a part of administrative secretarial staff at a company where everything was typed, because it was before word processors. I'm looking at the class. I'm sure most of us remember those days. And she used to bring back stacks and stacks and stacks of paper that were just being thrown out, because the interoffice memos kind of went through, and when they were done, there was nothing to do but throw them out, kind of thing. And I had the backs of all of these sheets of paper. And so she would bring a pile of paper home for me, and I was spending so much time on the air copying every word that I had stacks and stacks of paper that were written on both sides. And no matter how much paper she would bring home, I was spending so much time on the air, I kept filling up. And one day I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore, okay? That I'm only going to write down in the logbook the things I want to remember. So, name, QTH, call sign, what you had to originally log. If you remember the old ARRL logbooks, they had the log sheet on one side, but the backs were empty. So in a lot of my old logbooks, in fact, I have my old logbooks here, what would happen is that I would have the contact information in the logs, and then if they sent me their address to send a QSL card, I would write that down on the back side of the logbook, right? But other than that, like the weather and all of this other stuff, why write that down? If you talk to the guy again, the weather's going to change anyway. So I figured, why write that down? And that, Elliot, is how I kind of learned how to head copy. Okay. Also, have you tried any of these programs for learning learning words as the whole word as opposed to the letters?
No. What program?
Well, there's a K1IW in the Westford Club has this theory where he calls it Wordsworth instead of Farnsworth, where you start learning words instead of learning individual letters. You learn the sound of whole words. And so what you do is you send the word at a really fast speed, and then you send the space between the words is what you adjust instead of the space between the letters with Farnsworth.
Oh, I met him at that online thing, but it's not K1IW. That's Bob. It's something similar though.
K1IG. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
See, that's me. That's
Wordsworth.
Morse
Okay,
code
Wordsworth.
dyslexia.
I found it. Wordsworth. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I download his program, it might help me.
Well, read about it. He has no physical program. I'm talking about his theory is called Wordsworth.
Oh, there's something that says download, but I don't know what it is. Okay.
What software tools are available? If you go to the CWops website, and let me see if it'll take us there. Hang on a second.
Yeah, under CW resources, yeah.
Can you see that now?
Yep.
Are you seeing the CWops website?
Yep.
Yes.
We are.
So on the right side, there's a tab called Resources, right? And here's a whole bunch of links to all kinds of things that have to do with Morse code.
Okay.
I mentioned LCWO. Here's a link to LCWO, but here's a link to Morse Runner. Here's a link to RUFZ. I mentioned these during my presentation, right? But you got all kinds of links here. And by the way, this is again the CWops website. Here's the link to CW Academy, okay, where it talks about all of the different things involved with the academy. So, do I have anything else here? No, that's it.
So Bruce, maybe you could give me a call or drop me an email about if I should ever go back to the CWT Wednesday thing again.
Say that thing, the CWT?
Yeah, the Wednesday tests. I told you I wasn't feeling very welcome when I tried it recently. I don't know if you have any advice or.
Yes, I do. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You remember when you were very first contesting how you hunted and pounced?
Yeah.
And you would listen to the guy and he was sending much faster than you could copy, but his call sign and his exchange never changed?
Yeah.
So what I would do if I were you is get your information in the log, and that'll get you used to practicing at a higher speed, okay? And that'll help you with your character recognition.
Bruce, I was doing that, but some of them were going so fast it didn't matter how many times they sent it. It was like a blur to me.
Yeah, but again, if you practice at that, okay, you will get better. And by the way, Elliot, instead of doing it in CWT, which can be really frustrating,
right?
If you talk to like Marty NN1C, okay, he will tell you that he does to this day a half an hour of practice using RUFZ and using Morse Runner. He does at least a half an hour every day.
Okay.
And that, by the way, will give you a lot of the contest stuff is the rhythm. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little story. Everybody will be interested in this. I've got a local friend out here, Kilo Bravo 1 Fox Juliet, Ben, KB1FJ, who, by the way, I haven't seen now in a while. But Ben originally, he's from the South. He came to Massachusetts because Army intelligence at Fort Devens thought that he was a Morse code genius. So they sent him to Devens to train him to be an intercept operator. And when he was 18 years old, after he graduated first in his Morse code school, in 1963, they sent him to a place called Da Nang in Vietnam, okay, to copy North Vietnamese Morse code, which was sent 5-letter random groups at 40 words per minute. It was all encoded, okay? And he had to copy six copies. So it was on an old mill. There were no capital letters. It was all capital letters. There was a row above the numbers that was the punctuation. And because there's like 33 characters in Vietnamese, he had to learn all of these extra characters that didn't exist in English. Plus he had the numbers. So he had 6 sheets of paper with 5 sheets of carbon paper. Remember carbon paper? And he used to sit there at 40 words per minute, banging away on the mill and getting to the end and hitting the manual carriage return, right? Banging away, hitting the, and I said to him, that must have been like boring 8 hours a day. He says, no, it was easy because I was reading books while I was copying the code.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I said to him, how did you read books while you were copying the code? And he says, well, he says, the way I learn the code, it goes from the ears to the fingers.
Yeah.
He says, I don't actually recognize what I'm copying.
Yeah.
He says, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just reading the book, but I was doing. But to this day, if he gets in a conversation on the handbands, he has to go and read what he's copying because there is no character recognition whatsoever. None. Okay.
Yes.
None.
So Bruce,
I find myself sometimes in a contest, I find myself hitting the key on the keyboard before I've consciously recognized what that letter is, and it's like the strangest out-of-body experience I can like imagine happening. It's very weird. So all I can say is, Elliot, is nobody really understands the human mind and how you learn and how these things happen. You just kind of challenge yourself, and your brain will figure out other ways to get these things done. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah. So as late as 1981, they were still using mills and 6-ply to teach Morse code for the services, okay, and they had the little ceramic headphones, so there were no pads on the headphones. It was just the cans, they called them. It was just the ceramic headset that rested right against these bones. And you're absolutely right. The whole training evolution is to get your mind out of the equation and connect your ears to your fingers. And so we had a Navy chief that would sit the line and go out there and at around 25's copying your 5-letter groups. And he would do the jumble puzzle in the newspaper every day. You know that one where you got to scramble the letters, the jumbler? So he'd be copying the Morse code at about 25-30s, not Vietnamese. It was different bad guy, and he'd do the jumble every day. He'd sitting there, while he's copying and kind of yelling out the words.
Now, I've known guys on field day, okay, who could copy Morse code and log and smoke a cigar and tell a joke all at the same time, okay?
Yeah.
But and there have been operators. They say that guys like Katashi knows KH6IJ, he could copy like 5 conversations simultaneously. Now, I can't chew gum and listen to Morse code at the same time. You know, if somebody comes in the room for a demonstration, I can't translate and say what the guy is sending, because as soon as the word comes out of my mouth, I lose track of what the person is sending. I've been told that there are musicians who cannot play a musical instrument and sing at the same time. Okay, I'd hate to be in a rock band and not be able to sing. You know, I mean, it'd be terrible. But my understanding is there are musicians who can't do both. So I don't know what to tell you, Elliot. How to relieve.
Well, no, Bruce, you gave me a good idea, which was I like Morse Runner. You know, I could push the speed. If I'm frustrated, I can. So maybe I should just forget about the Wednesday thing and just do Morse Runner for improving proficiency.
So there's a couple of things I would do, Elliot. You know, call CQ a lot at your comfortable speed. Program one of the keys with QRS.
Oh, I was sending QRS, and some of these guys were ignoring me. That's why I got so pissed off. So I think I'll stick with Morse Run. I mean, the other CW contests, people actually do follow more the slow down to the sender speed better than on the Wednesday things. I hate to say this, Bruce. It sounds like your group is doing a wonderful job of teaching people, but on those CWTs, they ignore the message on the page, and they're kind of like Morse code snobs, it sounds like. I hate to say it.
I'll pass that along. You know, what happens is when you only have an hour, okay? when you only have an hour, you don't have much time to waste, if you know what I'm saying. On the other hand, I just, for the life of me, I enjoy getting on these things and participating, okay? But you know, come the end of the day, it's like, why does it have to be that competitive for the sake of like one contact kind of thing, right? I slow down. Anybody calls me back at a slow speed, I crank the speed right down.
Good for you.
But I'll tell you, with the modern software, sometimes it's not that easy to do. If you're operating remotely, it's not that easy to do. So I don't know what to tell you. The other thing is, have you tried the SST on Sunday night?
No, I don't. What's that?
So what CWops used to do with what Elliot's talking about, the Wednesday CWT, which are 1 hour contests every Wednesday. Okay, they do one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. So it's 3 1 hour mini contests every Wednesday. In fact, there's one coming up at 11 o'clock tonight, and it only lasts for 1 hour. Okay. So what they used to do is 3 times a year, right after the class ended, they would have a slow day where the maximum speed was 20 words per minute.
Ooh.
And that was so that the students who were graduating the CW Academy classes could participate at a speed that they were comfortable with. Okay? And it was very popular. And then some of the local guys, I don't know if you know Pi K1RV.
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, I worked him when I did that thing last Wednesday, and he slowed down for me. He's a good guy.
So he's one of the movers and shakers at the K1 USN Radio Club down in Braintree, and they decided that we need more of these activities. So every Sunday night is a 1 hour slow speed version of CWT where the maximum speed is 20 words per minute. And it is hugely popular, not a little popular, but the bands go crazy for 1 hour on Sunday night with some of the greatest contest operators in the country who operate at a maximum of 20 words per minute for 1 hour.
On Sundays.
Say that again?
On Sundays?
It's Sunday night at 0000 Zulu.
On the club site, is it this? It's not CWT. What's it called?
If you go to the
K1 USN slow speed test.
Right, the SST.
Oh, it's not under the CWops.
No, it's not. And as soon as K1USN came out with this, and again, it was a couple of the CWops members that were in the K1USN who proposed this. As soon as they did this, CWops stopped the 3 slow sessions. Okay, they said we're not going to do the slow sessions anymore because we have a slow session every week.
Well, thank you. I found the website, k1usn.com. Thank you. I'll try that one, and I'll stick with Morse Runner for if I have time to practice. That's a little less frustrating, and it's good. It's really good practice. For the rest of you guys, you can start off slow with clean code, where you can click these options like having it generate noise and interference. And even there's a thing called lids, which is, ham jargon for bad operators. So you can really torture yourself with it, or you can make it slow and easy, that Morse Runner. So that's pretty cool, yeah. Thanks, Bruce. I'll try that slow speed one.
What else?
Question on equipment?
What's that?
Question on equipment.
Sure.
My mic has 2 buttons for changing the frequency, but you can configure the radio to use one for a dit and one for a dot. Is that worth playing with, or should I forget about that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I've got a Kenwood M60 mic that has 2 buttons that are normally configured and normally used to change the frequency, raise it or lower the frequency.
Yeah.
But there are buttons on the base. But you can configure the receiver to recognize those buttons, not for the frequency, but for code input. One's for a dit and one's for a dot. Should I forget about using that, or think about it?
I would say yes. I think it would be difficult. Maybe you can learn it. I've seen a program that somebody wrote that you can do a search and find it. I think it's called iDit something, where what the guy did was in his text message, and I'll see if I can do this, in his on his iPhone, in his text message, he replaced the keyboard with 2 buttons. And so he can basically send his text at 50 words per minute with a paddle on his iPhone. And it's really amazing watching him text at 50 words per minute. Of course, you have to know Morse code at 50 words per minute to be able to do that, okay? And I don't. But it's interesting. The answer is I don't know. I've never heard of anyone sending Morse code using their microphone like that. I suppose you could do it. I don't know.
Bruce, could you post the links for the when you come up with the links for that 3D key and the Alibaba parts?
So on the post for the key itself, he has the instructions, which has all the Alibaba parts and all of that stuff. Okay.
Okay.
But I'm really challenged right now. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. I've never had this much trouble before. EA7. Wow. MHOHMO.
HVO, Hotel Victor Oscar.
You found it?
EA7 Hotel Victor Oscar, yeah.
Yep, there it is.
3D,
EA7
yes.
HVO. If you search EA7 HVO paddles, you'll come to the instructables.com, which has it there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
we're
last
rolling
question,
up.
do you
Yeah, we'll take your question, Christine, and then I think we'll wrap things up because we're at the hour here.
Okay, do you have any recommendations on speaker? Like, I installed this Morse program on my iPhone, but the speaker on the iPhone makes it just seem really muddy. Are there any suggestions on speakers, or no? Just
I don't know.
try.
I don't know. It's. Have you tried it with like earbuds on the iPhone?
No, I haven't tried it with earbuds yet.
that's usually when I have trouble listening to the iPhone, I usually put the earbuds in. But you know, I on that I don't know what to tell you. I will tell you that there are keyers and there are keyers. So these little MFJs are good enough, right? But when I teach my class, I found this is something. This is a ham keyer from a company called Ham Radio Center, which was made probably back in the 80s.
I've got that same one. I've got that too.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. The speaker is nice and loud and powerful, and it does everything I need to do. So,
Bruce, I bought that one at the store. There used to be a ham radio store in Medford, Mass. And
yeah.
my friend Bones K1CE had a part-time job on Saturdays, and I went in there and I'm like, "Hey Bones, I'm looking for a keyer," and he doesn't say a word. He just sort of like points to this thing in the display case, like, "Okay," and that's the one you just held up. I still have it. It's great for code practice.
It's really it's loud. You can plug in a hand key in the back, which is also pretty good. And I think they actually, for a while, they were making keyers for MFJ at one point, because MFJ has a range of keyers that look identical to this.
Yeah,
so
probably.
All right. So, Bruce, I didn't ask, but I recorded the meeting. Is it okay if we post the recording of the meeting on our site?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Thanks.